Hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk Ray Bradbury. If you've not subscribed to our channel, please do. We are looking for just under 400 more subscribers this year to get to our goal of 3,000 before 2022. And with your help, we can get there. So here on Let's Talk Ray Bradbury, I'm slowly working through a collection called These Stories of Ray Bradbury. There's 100 tales. Today's story is number 31, and that story is The Invisible Boy from 1945. Quick synopsis. While his parents are away, a boy named Charlie makes a 6-mile hike through the woods to visit an older relative simply known as Old Lady. He's basically being a nuisance. At one point, he locks himself in the house and won't let her in, so she stays outside and basically tries to bribe him to coming out. Eventually, she convinces him that she can make him invisible if he only comes out and sees her. She sort of fashions herself as a bit of a witch. These things that she does, she calls miracles, and she tells him that with a bat and a needle, I can make you invisible. So she gets him to crawl up a tree and catch and kill a bat and toss it down to her. She sticks a needle in its eye, and suddenly he is invisible. But it's only then that she reveals that none of her miracles ever work, but she imagines that they do, and in this case, it's going to be a situation of imagination because she immediately begins to pretend like that Charlie is in fact invisible. So he begins to make a nuisance of himself and to tease her and do all these things and to hide, and she is very diligent about looking away and pretending like she's not staring at him, and it's quite charming actually, but soon he becomes a nuisance even as an invisible boy. At one point, he's humorously running around naked because he imagines that nobody can see him. So she decides that I have to convince him that he's become visible again. And so he gives her back the bat and the needle, and she pretends that if you don't become visible, there's all these things you're going to miss out in life, like, girls don't want to kiss invisible mouths and things like that. And so he wants to become visible. And slowly she imagines or pretends and tells him that, this part of you has become visible in this part, and suddenly I can see the whole thing. Well, he's completely visible again and runs along home. But she, in this situation, sort of flips the script and pretends that he is still invisible and still there and still paying attention to her, although he's long gone home, because in fact, this is all about her being lonely and wishing that she had a son like Charlie to talk to all the time. So this is like classic, charming, playful Ray Bradbury, but as always, there's always this sort of lesson, this undercurrent, this little serious kernel of a morality tale involved. The best thing about it is that we all associate Bradbury with, speculative fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy. And here is a case of complete make-believe. And there's no magic involved at all other than imagination. And I think that all of us can sort of relate to, if we remember back that far, sort of events in our childhood where we played sort of make-believe and pretended we were invisible, or pretended the floor was hot lava, or that there were sharks swimming beneath our feet and that we couldn't touch the ground, and all these sort of interesting games sort of made our worlds more magical. And probably, if I don't have kids, but if you have your own kids, you've certainly seen this at work more recently than I have. But it's all quite interesting the way that Bradbury frames it into this tale, where you, from page one, you automatically assume that this woman's a real witch and that he's really going to become invisible. But in fact, she reveals in her inner monologue that she's full of crap, but she's just lonely. And that's sort of the important lesson here, is that she's an older woman with no family, or no close family, no kids of her own, lives far from everyone else, and she sort of suffers from loneliness. And probably it's partially because I would assume that with all of her stories of miracles and witchcraft, people probably avoid her. But of course, a child who came to her would have found her more interesting than the typical adult who would probably ostracize her. So when it comes right down to it, it's about loneliness and sort of older age, and probably this idea. Probably the moral of the story is that people behave in a certain way, probably first as a self-defense mechanism, but then it sort of affects their life, and that people really need to give them pay more attention to people when you see somebody who's all alone, because they might be dealing with something other than what you think. She pretends to be a witch, and in fact, she's just looking for someone to talk to. So, yeah, The Invisible Boy, 1945, from the stories of Ray Bradbury. Please subscribe, and next time we'll come back and talk about The Golden Kite, The Silver Wind from 1953. See you later.